Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about reading and analyzing The Great Gatsby and all the different requirements you have for analyzing the novel. So, if you look here on the unit plan, which is in the classwork tab under Gatsby, you'll see there's an audio version here. So, if you do want to listen to the audio version while you're reading, there's a link here. That's up to you if you want to use that resource. Okay, so before each class, you should come to class having read the assigned chapter. Remember, we're only doing one at a time, one chapter per class, and complete an analysis chart for each chapter. And this is what the analysis chart should look like. You should have 3 entries for every chapter. So there are 9 total chapters. So that means 3 entries per chapter. You should have 27 entries by the end. If you are an honors distinction student, you should have 1 additional entry per chapter. Now, again, if you decide to do this, I will give you extra credit. I will be collecting these charts at the very end, all 9 of them. So if you do have that extra entry per chapter, whether you decide to go with honors distinction or not, you will get extra credit for it. Okay, what do you put in the chart? You could pick certain topics that you see, important characterization. What are we learning about a character that seems really important? Are there any symbols that keep popping up? Is there anything that just suggests that one of Fitzgerald's important themes is found in this particular quote? And you're going to use this study guide, which if you click on the hyperlink, it brings you to this page. This gives you some additional information about Gatsby, and also gives you some information about what you could be analyzing for. So basically this summary here is just about the fact that our narrator for this story is Nick Carraway, and we see everything through his eyes, which suggests that he could be unreliable. In fact, he talks a lot about being not judgmental and then proceeds to be kind of judgmental. So that's our first sign that he is maybe a bit hypocritical or maybe a bit unreliable as a narrator. But we see everything through his eyes, that he is the cousin of Daisy and Tom. He decides to go to New York to start a career in the bond business. He leaves Minnesota country to come to New York. He also served in the war. Sounds familiar, right? Sounds a lot like F. Scott Fitzgerald's background. You'll see Nick and J. Gatsby are kind of a combination of some different elements of F. Scott Fitzgerald himself. Anyway, so Daisy is Nick's cousin. So when Nick first comes out to New York and starts working and finds a place to stay, she gets invited over to her and Tom's house for dinner. And that's basically the first chapter. Tom is Daisy's wealthy husband. He's kind of a jerk, to put it lightly. Another thing to understand is Tom and Daisy are from something called old money. Old money basically means they inherited their money. Their money has been in their family for generations. New money means you just came into being rich. It just happened for you. And that seems to be really differentiated by the fact that West Egg, which is one part of the setting, basically imagine Long Island. Imagine there's these 2 kind of peninsulas that come out into the water a little bit, and they're split up by this bay in the middle of them. On one side, you have something called East Egg. On the other side, you have West Egg. East Egg is where all the old money people live, like Tom and Daisy. West Egg, all the new money people, is where the new money people live. And you'll see that Jay Gatsby is one of the new money. Okay, so Gatsby is someone you don't meet until the 3rd chapter of the story. He throws a lot of crazy parties. People don't seem to know where he got his money from, where he came from. He's kind of mysterious in the first few chapters, and then we start learning more about him through Nick's eyes. Jordan Baker is a friend of Daisy. She becomes one of Nick's love interests. She seems to represent that flapper, the independent woman. Then there's Myrtle and George Wilson. Myrtle is Tom's mistress. Tom is cheating on Daisy, and Daisy kind of knows about it. So again, going back to the idea of Tom's kind of a jerk. Myrtle is of a lower financial class, a lower economic class. You'll definitely notice the difference in classes. George Wilson is her husband. He has no idea that she is cheating on him, and he seems like kind of just a dope. All right, so different topics and themes that you might come across. I mean, these are kind of self-explanatory. So these are different things that you could analyze for in your entries, And maybe by the end of the novel, you can look back through these entries and see, all right, did I have a bunch of entries about the American dream? And if so, then at that point, maybe you can figure out what was the full theme Fitzgerald was trying to say about the American dream. What was the commentary or perhaps criticism he was making about the American dream? Okay, so you're all going to lead up to that by putting in different entries for these different topics. Okay, major symbols, you're going to see the green light. The green light is this light that's at the end of the dock of Daisy's house, because again, Daisy and Gatsby both live on the water, on the bay, and they're separated. Gatsby is on West Egg, Daisy is on East Egg, and Daisy has this green light at the end of her dock. This is going to definitely be important, and I think when you see this, you should definitely analyze for it. Valley of the Ashes, that's the beginning of chapter 2, I believe. Try to think about what this setting means as far as social class goes. All this other stuff, you'll see that the more and more it comes up, how it all contributes to some of the major themes. These potential essay topics, this is just to give you an idea of other topics you could analyze for. So you can read through these and kind of keep them in your mind when you start reading. Now, as far as reading goes, let's practice a little bit of what you could put in an entry for your analysis chart. Actually, before we do that, so this is what you have to do before each class. So here, when it says chapter 1 reading is due on this date, depending on what class you're in, that means you need to have read, you need to have completed this analysis chart. Then during class, we're going to use that Padlet, the same thing we used during the Halloween class. We're going to use that to analyze Gatsby, and you're going to use your chart and your reading to try to analyze different categories like different characters, themes, important quotes. Based on the Padlet and our discussion with that, based on your analysis and reading, hopefully you'll be able to figure out some of the important elements of Gatsby, and then you will have quizzes here and there. And the quizzes will be based on these discussions, your entries. So that's why it's important for you to be here for these discussions and to participate in them and to listen to them, because I will take quiz questions directly from those conversations. Okay? And like I said, assessments, you'll have quizzes scattered throughout. Okay, you will receive a grade at the end of the novel for having your entire analysis chart done. Again, that's 3 entries per chapter, or 4 entries if you're doing honors distinction. Okay, and then we will have a final assessment. I'll let you guys know what that is as we get closer to the end of the novel. Okay, and again, with this checklist, you see that every time a reading chart is due, okay, so reading is due on this date. Then in class, we'll work on the Padlet, and then there's usually a check-in, like see where you are if you're having trouble with anything as it pertains to Gatsby. And then again, you can see there's only one chapter due per class period. Chapter 2 is on the 12th for period 3, and period 4 and 7 the 13th. And then you have 4 days to read one additional chapter. So you definitely have time between each chapter to get this work done. Okay, so that's the chart. Now let's talk a little bit about what your analysis chart can look like. So I have a screenshot, the first few chapters of the novel. So let's read them together. And then I'm going to show you an example entry. So chapter 1 starts, in my younger and more vulnerable years, my father gave me some advice that I've been turning over in my mind ever since. Whenever you feel like criticizing anyone, he told me, just remember that all the people in this world haven't had the advantages that you've had. So right off the bat, it sounds like Nick is someone who has lived somewhat of a privileged life so far. He didn't say any more. And by the way, I've underlined a bunch of stuff because this is my copy of the book, but don't write inside your copy of the book. This is just something that I do because I have a teacher copy, just to be clear. Okay. He didn't say any more, but we've always been unusually communicative in a reserved way, and I understood that he meant a great deal more than that. In consequence, I'm inclined to reserve all judgments, a habit that has opened up many curious natures to me and also made me the victim of not a few veteran bores. The abnormal mind is quick to detect and attach itself to this quality when it appears in a normal person. And so it came about that in college I was unjustly accused of being a politician because I was privy to the secret griefs of wild, unknown men. So right off the bat, we get the impression that Nick is someone that other people feel like they can trust because he doesn't seem judgmental. So a lot of people end up confiding in him, confiding secrets to him. This is going to be important since Nick is our narrator and has this quality to him. A lot of the other characters, like the Buchanans, like Jay Gatsby, are going to confide in Nick certain important things that we're going to need to know for, to understand the novel. Most of the confidences were unsought. Frequently, I have feigned sleep, preoccupation, or a hostile levity when I realized by some unmistakable sign that a intimate revelation, sorry, let me just get this right, was quivering on the horizon. For the intimate revelations of young men, or at least the terms in which they express them, are usually plagiaristic and marred by obvious suppressions. Reserving judgments is a matter of infinite hope. I am so little afraid of missing something if I forget that, as my father snobbishly suggested, and I snobbishly repeat, a sense of the fundamental decencies is parceled out unequally at birth. So he's basically saying he's a decent person for not being judgmental. And by not being judgmental, he's saying he's got this infinite hope. That if you're not judgmental, you have a hope that people are good and you're not going to judge them in a harsh way. And after boasting this way of my tolerance, I come to the admission that it has a limit. Conduct may be founded on the hard rock or the wet marshes, but after a certain point, I don't care what it's founded on. When I came back from the East last autumn, I felt that I wanted the world to be in uniform and a sort of moral attention forever. I wanted no more riotous excursions with privileged glimpses into the human heart. So this suggests that this story is going to be told by Nick, and this story occurred in the past. And now he's back from the East, and he's telling us what happened when he was there. The fact that he wishes the world was at a sort of moral attention means that some bad stuff went down in the East, and it messed with his head, and now he's trying to figure it all out. Only Gatsby, the man who gives his name to this book, was exempt from my reaction. Gatsby, who represented everything for which I have an unaffected scorn. If personality is an unbroken series of successful gestures, then there was something gorgeous about him, some heightened sensitivity to the promises of life, as if he were related to one of those intricate machines that register earthquakes 10,000 miles away. This responsiveness had nothing to do with the flabby impressionability which is dignified under the name of the creative temperament. It was an extraordinary gift for hope, a romantic readiness such as I have never found in any other person, and which is not likely I shall ever find again. No, Gatsby turned out all right at the end. It is what preyed on Gatsby. Okay, and we'll stop there. So now if you look at the chart that I've created, which again, all you have to do is just make a chart with 2 columns, one for a quote, one for analysis. So I took out some of the important quotes from that paragraph that we saw on page 6. You can do this as well, or you can do one quote. Try not to, if there's a few quotes that are related to the same idea, have that just be one entry. Okay, so I pulled out that the quote, only Gatsby was exempt from his negative reaction, but he did represent something for which I have an unaffected score. He had an extraordinary gift for hope. Okay, then this line too. So what I say here is Nick seems to admire Gatsby, even though Gatsby symbolized ideas that Nick does not agree with. That's what's represented here. What can those ideas be? We don't know yet. So obviously Fitzgerald is trying to, make us think or make us look for what these ideas could be, and when we continue to read. Nick also admires Gatsby's gift for hope, which we see here, which seems to mean that Gatsby hoped for something and didn't let anything stop that feeling for hope. So he had this extraordinary capacity to hope, to not let things tear him down, and to always hope that he would be successful, that he would achieve whatever he wanted to achieve. That last line also suggests, this one, that even though Gatsby, the person, was good, what he pursued was not, and that people around him preyed on him. Okay, so it sounds like the people that are affiliated with Gatsby are maybe we're going after him for some reason. So this whole section sets the stage for what's going to happen later on in the novel, what we're going to learn about Gatsby. Okay, and if we think back to the study guide, look, hope was one of the major topics. That's covered a few times here on that page. So you could even add that in here. Okay, but again, you have your quotes here and then your analysis here. Okay, and that's really it. So again, 3 entries per chapter, 4 if you're honors distinction, and then we should get this done before winter break. Okay, so if you have any questions, please let me know in the Zoom.